Welcome to the fourth audio in this series. These are support notes to help you with materials in volumes 4 or book 4 of the Fibromyalgia Road to Recovery series. You can find the link to all 4 books below. This audio is just about 30 minutes long, so do stop and start whenever you need. You don't have to listen to me rabbiting on for a whole half an hour in one go. I'm so glad you found me today, because what this signals as much to you as it does to me is that you are sincere in your search and your yearning for a path of recovery. The path of recovery from fibromyalgia is not an instant fix. There is no magic pill, but it is possible. I know this because I suffered from fibromyalgia for 7 years. Maybe longer. That's when it was diagnosed. I was disabled with a blue badge for 3 years of it. And so it is with sincere gratitude that I stand here today to help you. I've always started these study notes with a moment of gratitude, because I know how difficult it can be to see positivities within the soul-destroying, painful condition that is fibromyalgia. I really know how much you're struggling, because I've been there. I often used to go, I've been there, got the t-shirt. Actually, I haven't got a t-shirt. Maybe I should get some t-shirts printed. In the first 3 audios, I talked about 3 of the keys to recovery, being healing of past traumas. So, past traumatic stresses are really common precursors of fibromyalgia. It doesn't mean that if you have post-traumatic stress or that you have suffered trauma, you will develop fibromyalgia, but just that people with fibromyalgia all have clinical histories of trauma and often are suffering from post-traumatic stress. So, first of the keys, recovering from past traumas. And without exception, everyone who wrote to me when I was undertaking the research via UK Fibromyalgia all those years ago for these books, which are data-driven and qualitative and experiential research, were the foundation of these books. Everyone, without exception, wrote to me sharing with me their clinical histories and histories of traumas, physical traumas, mental traumas, psychological and emotional, and grieving. And multiple traumas. So I had this theory that came out of all of that research, that it's something where we have multiple traumas and the body inability to heal from the pain just starts registering everything as pain. In my case, I suffered a traumatic head injury in a road traffic accident in my 20s. Shortly after that time, within months, I was raped. I had to terminate the pregnancy for the medical reasons because I was still suffering from blood on the brain and a head injury. And then a few years later, when I did give birth to my wonderful son, I suffered terrible domestic violence from a man who suffered himself from severe psychotic episodes. And then the sudden death of this man, the sudden death of his father when my son was just 8 years old, was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. My body at that point said, I can't deal with any more pain. And from that day, everything, and I mean everything I experienced, registered physical pain in my body, a loud bang, sudden flash of light, slight draft, everything debilitated me. And the chronic physical pain led to exhaustion, chronic fatigue, and, of course, inevitably severe depression, because chronic pain is depressing. So I'm standing here today, well actually I'm sitting here today, that's 10 years ago since I recovered, and I remain medication-free, pain-free, symptom-free and fibro-free. I didn't wake up one day just recovered. The recovery process was a long path. I have another assumption about this that needs a bit of research, but I think that the longer one has suffered from the condition, the longer it may take to fully recover. So what I really like to do is hear from people who are newly diagnosed, younger people who are newly diagnosed. And let's get you all on the path to recovery and prove that recovery is a possibility. In fact, my experience and my research have led me to believe that fibromyalgia is not so much an illness, but it's in a deep, deep healing process of itself. Now, I'm aware that I keep repeating the information on these audios, and many of you will be thinking by now, well, when is she going to tell you the secret of our recovery? There isn't really one secret. There are many, many keys, and there's a process that I followed. Your recovery process, like mine, will be a journey, and the key points that I keep repeating will form the foundation and support for you, and that I promise. Fibromyalgia is your body's cry for help. In the first 3 audio support materials, we have covered what fibromyalgia is, its diagnostic and prognostic pathways, causes including trauma, and the 3 of the keys to recovery, naming the healing of past traumas, the healing of sleep disturbances, insomnia and sleep disturbances, patterns that exacerbate the painful condition. It's really, really important, and the 2 things go hand in hand. As we heal and we recover, our sleep disturbances disappear, but also we have to have a good night's sleep to wake up with perhaps slightly less pain than we had the day before. So that's 2. The 3rd key is our recognition of our connectedness and the oneness with all aspects of our manifest external environment. Now that sounds a bit esoteric. I discussed it on audio 2. It's a theme throughout all 5 of the books, and it is, I believe, an important thought to get your head around. So the recognition of our connectedness and oneness with all aspects of our manifest external environment, including any codependent relationships we are in. Now, this concept in Buddhist terminology is known as Esho Funi, and I will be recording separate audios about the spiritual path, or one of the many spiritual paths to recovery, and the esoteric side of deep healing. But for now, just be aware if you are in a codependent relationship, or be aware of how environmental factors immediately in your environment may be making your condition worse. Just acknowledge things, just be aware, observe, no blame, no, just observe the situation. This audio is designed to support the information in Volume 4 of the series Fibromyalgia Road to Recovery, Elizabeth McSweeney. They are available on Amazon via the links below. I'm really sorry people have asked, are they available in print, in paperback? And the answer is no, they're only available as ebooks, because I just don't have funds to run a print run. So, to recap, as my research and writing of these books progressed, I came to realise how my own Buddhist beliefs, theology, metaphysics and faith played a profound and crucial role in my own recovery. And I'm not saying you have to turn into a Buddhist, I'm not saying you have to have a faith or faith in Islam or a Christian faith, but you do have to have faith in the belief that nothing in life is permanent, and that includes the situation and condition and the pain you are feeling at this moment. Chapter 10 in the book, Family and Friends, in the previous volume, Volume 3, introduced this concept of bioenergetics and investigated how the dynamics of carer-patient relationship can impact upon and even create potential blocks to our recovery. Definitely the illness impacts on our relationships, you'll all agree. This volume, Volume 4, leads directly up to the 7 healing principles, which are explained in more detail in Volume 5 and which now form the foundation of my own Road to Recovery programs. In other words, in Volume 5, I explicitly extol the virtues of the principles and treatments which enabled my own recovery. I can only speak from my own personal experience here and share my own personal experience. So I use my personal experience to help others. This volume, Volume 4, collates all the self-help treatments tried by myself and many, many other people with fibromyalgia who wrote to me. I cite at least 35 in the book. Other people didn't want to be named or quoted, but many, many more people wrote to me about their experiences and their paths for treatment, symptom management, treatment, and steps towards their own recovery. So 4 chapters in volume 4. Chapter 11, treatments and therapies. Chapter 12, vitamins, minerals and nutrition. Chapter 13, detoxing and diet. Chapter 14, the importance of exercise. Now, this volume, book 4, contains so much information. It's like a little encyclopedia all of its own. So I decided to devote not 1 but 4 audio tracks to its contents. This audio will cover chapter 11, treatments and therapies. So, as always, before I begin, we want to draw your focus to the words you use when talking to others. Throughout all 4 volumes of these books, I originally, in the edition that's up on Amazon, I used the term us fibros, even though at that time I had recovered. I did this to help readers to understand that I've been where you are now. However, in retrospect, I realised that this label in itself is very harmful and can be preventing recovery. I've heard many people describe themselves as fibros, as if it's a club membership. Now, at the time, camaraderie felt good, but we don't hear people say us rheumatisms or us cancers. Why do people with fibromyalgia label themselves as an illness? Please, please, please stop it now. You are not fibromyalgia. You are so much more than your current pain. Take a moment to acknowledge with deep gratitude the depth of your true identity, and it is masked only by the temporary shadow of this moment in time. Fibromyalgia Road to Recovery by Elizabeth McSweeney, Volume 4, Self-Help, The Search for Healing. And this is important because your search for healing is what's brought you here to this moment. Chapter 11, Treatments and Therapies. So I want to congratulate you for getting to this point in your journey. Self-help often begins with a desperate search for symptomatic relief, which for many is motivated by the unacceptable side effects of prescribed medication or lack of them. It starts with an intention to discover alternatives to pharmaceutical cocktails and more crucially signifies a yearning for both physical and spiritual healing. I will add a caveat here though. Many people say, oh no, no, I don't take any medicine. Don't be a martyr. If you're in pain, take medicine. What you're trying to do is actually say you want to be healed and you don't need the medicine, but there is no shame in needing support. My research showed that the most popular therapies for symptomatic respite of fibromyalgia were hydrotherapy and massage therapy, and medical research has produced strong evidence for using hydrotherapy and massage therapy to help alleviate pain, reduce tender points, generally improve health, fitness and well-being. Now, when I did this research many moons ago, we didn't have much evidence. There wasn't any medical evidence that came to my path. There was medical evidence extant, but it didn't come to me. And there certainly wasn't much anecdotal evidence about the role of CBD and cannabis and the endocannabinoid system. Now, there's a growing body of data on the many people suffering from fibromyalgia who are self-medicating using cannabis in the UK. It's estimated that 1.4 million people in the UK use cannabis to help with chronic pain. It remains obviously illegal to self-medicate, but there are 180,000 doctors who are registered to prescribe. We are at the moment, through our company, trying to raise funds for research in cannabis use and fibromyalgia, and there will be much more information about this in the future. And this year we'll see the launch of my new cannabis, or I should say CBD wellness range. It's January 2020, by the way, so maybe if you're hearing this in the future, we've already achieved this. We'll be looking for people to review the products as well, so do get in touch, details below. I'll also be making a separate series of audios about medical research directly related to this. But for now, we'll focus on other tried and tested forms of symptom management. Pain, of course, is the most overwhelming and soul-destroying of the symptoms of fibromyalgia, and hydrotherapy is a tried and tested therapeutic pain treatment. But I want to touch on a couple of points here. So there's lots of information in the book about it, but I want to make these points. One of the healing properties of water. I had a water birth, and I can attest how entering a birthing pool was better pain relief than the TENS machine that I was wearing that I had to take off to get in the birthing pool. The healing power of water is a principle that I will return to. It was one of the 7 healing principles that I wrote about in my book. That's not from an academic point of view, it's much more from an esoteric point of view. But the 7 healing principles that help form my own recovery framework, very holistic framework, and I detail that in volume 5 of the book series. But here I want to talk about the temperature of water. So hydrotherapy is very useful in pain management of fibromyalgia, but it's very, very important not to get cold. Now, I love swimming, I've always loved swimming, and I do believe that on top of recommended pacing by physiotherapists, it is important to keep as active as possible if you have fibromyalgia. Now, for some people, that's a tiny amount of exercise. Don't overdo it, but it is really important. I remember how it would take me all day to get to a swimming pool and spend just 12 minutes in the water before I would feel cold. So I had to get out, and I would sit in the cubicle, and even holding a bath towel up to try and dry would make my arms hurt. And then I remember how the exertion of this trip might cause a fibro flare, which incapacitated me for days. So, but I persevered, and swimming became a very important part of my recovery regime, and it's a very important part of my life now. The temperature of the water is very important. Obviously, you can't swim in water that's too warm, but when you have fibromyalgia, it is so important not to get cold. So please try and visit warm hydrotherapy spa pools if you can. And again, if you visit an ordinary pool and it's too cold within minutes, no shame, get out, you know. Now, I want to talk about this issue of exertion and a word of caution. When we're floating in water, buoyant in a pool, it is soothing and our aches and pains can disappear. It's a great relief, the healing power of water, but it can also give us a false sense. I meet many people with fibromyalgia who really enjoy aqua exercise classes. Without a doubt, it's important to exercise, and it's important to enjoy yourself. So, in fact, you can't recover without exercise. But here is a word of caution. Exercise in water is more like pulling weights in a gym. The water resistance against muscles and muscle exercise means that it's easy to overdo it because you don't feel that you're overdoing it. And aqua classes are often led by instructors who have no personal experience of fibromyalgia, and they might encourage you to keep exercising for an hour-long session, and in my experience this can be detrimental to fibromyalgia and cause flare-ups that incapacitate you for days. I know that there are some self-help groups in the UK that manage to get to hydrotherapy pools and have special exercises led by people who understand fibromyalgia. Now, it's important if you go to an aqua exercise class that you're in the water and you don't perceive the water as cold, and only you will know when you start to get cold. And also that as soon as you begin to feel tired in the water, that you can excuse yourself with no shame whatsoever. Stop exercising, keep warm, explain to your instructor that you might have to do this. Don't be pressurised into staying in a cold pool until your muscles ache because other people can, because this is your body and you need to listen to it. So massage and hydrotherapy are equal favourites to help alleviate symptoms of pain, and the healing power of massage, along with exercise and meditation, appear in Chinese literature as early as 3000 BC, in Hindu writings from 1800 BC. Massage combined with bathing was recommended to heal fatigue and support relaxation and deep sleep. The virtues of them all were extolled by the ancient Greek physician Herodotus in the 5th century, who professed to prolong life and vitality by using massage herbs and oils, and Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, used massage to improve joint mobility and muscles. So the ancient Greeks and Romans recommended daily bathing, heat and massage to maintain health. I would also recommend daily warm spas and heat treatments and massage. Now, again, I remember when I had fibromyalgia, if I went to, for example, the sauna or the steam room, I would feel exhausted, and it often felt like it brought on a flare, but I persevered. So spa bathing, heating and massage is incredibly important on this journey, so it's something to look out for. However, so the ancient Greeks were there and the Romans were there, but it took us in the Western world to catch up. English surgeon in the 18th century Oxford University professor John Grossman demonstrated the benefits of massage in relieving stiff joints, gout and rheumatism. His belief that friction and rubbing are beneficial to joints is now really understood because we know how a build-up of mineral deposits and lactic acid are involved in causing joint pain and immobility. Now, many moons ago, I qualified as a remedial sports massage therapist and an aromatherapist experienced in Swedish massage, hot stone, deep tissue, and trigger point massage. And I'd like to take a moment to consider different types of massage. Also, so a personal point here was that I had worked with people in this practice, and I gave myself such a hard time because I couldn't get myself better. So I think that's what gave me some of the determination to really focus on my own path to recovery. So please take a moment to consider the different types of massage and which type of massage might be more beneficial for you. Fibromyalgia can be diagnosed through identifying certain pressure points within the body. Because of this, some people with fibromyalgia will recommend trigger point massage, shiatsu, Chinese massage, and deep tissue massage, perhaps even Thai massage, to really work on the pressure points. But for some people with fibromyalgia, this type of massage will just cause too much physical pain and may even result in incapacitating flare-ups for them. Now, some people who persevere testify that those deep tissue and pressure point massages released them and helped them in their treatment, and also helped set them on the path to recovery. But other people can't bear even the gentlest touch. Now, we know that with fibromyalgia, although it's diagnosed as a rheumatic condition, it is really a neurological condition, and it's a condition some academics and medical researchers describe it as a somatic or even a psychosomatic condition. I'm not so sure about the word somatic. I think what's happening is that the brain is registering and the body is registering pain where other people, and when you're healthy and recovered, you would register touch. So it's like our pain gate is somewhat askew. So it's important that you find an empathetic and spiritually healing masseuse or shiatsu practitioner, somebody who you have a rapport with. There is a wealth of academic and medical studies, research and articles which validate support for the use of massage as a treatment for fibromyalgia. The citations and references of meta-analysis and studies can be found at the end of each of the chapters of the books in the series. Research findings have evidenced that reduced sensitivity to pain in tender points, decrease in factor P, reduced anxiety levels, improved sleep patterns and improved physical function and capacity following courses of massage treatment. And the fact that it's a course is important. One-off massages, as nice as they are not the process that you need to get a framework towards treatment and recovery. Okay, a course of massage treatments is what you need. Treatments need to be regular, at least weekly, if not twice weekly, to have a recovery effect. In fact, we've already heard that the ancient Greeks and Romans recommended daily massage, and I can hear you all shouting, yes, we haven't got the funds to pay for daily massage, so unless you feel like going off and marrying or kidnapping a masseuse, you need to go easy on that. But treatments do need to be regular, so try at least weekly, if not twice weekly. This will help to have more of a recovery effect. So Also, please get in touch if you'd like us to recommend therapists in your area, because there are certain therapists who understand, maybe they've had fibromyalgia, maybe they have treated people with fibromyalgia, and really have a rapport and empathy and understanding with the condition. So do get in touch if you need help finding a therapist. So there are all types of massage, but there are other types of massage which can be gentler and just as effective. The gentle effleurage techniques of aromatherapy, coupled with oils such as frankincense, rose, lavender and chamomile, can encourage deep healing sleep. Now, I love aromatherapy massage, and the oils, frankincense, rose, lavender, chamomile, they have a kind of entourage effect. So all of those terpenes mixed together have a much more deep healing sleep effect on the body than any of those oils separately. And obviously, deep healing sleep, we have attested already, is one of those keys to recovery. I particularly recommend a blend of rose, frankincense and benzoin to help with deep healing work. We'll try and get some of those together and available. But the rose, frankincense and benzoin really seem to help on the deep healing level around the heart and heart chakra, lungs, opening up the lungs and totally relaxing us, helping us breathe deeply and helping us relax, and supporting that healing sleep. Other forms of bodywork to realign posture can also help. Some people who wrote to me went to chiropractitioners and osteopaths. Now, please remember to find practitioners experienced and understanding of the journey that is fibromyalgia. If you can, because now you've found me and you have found this path, other paths will open up to you. If you can, find these practitioners who have helped people recover. This is important. It's taken me 10 years to talk about my recovery because I lived with this illness, for over a decade. I didn't want to then have it at the forefront of my mind. I wanted to get on with my life. So there are a lot of people out there who have recovered from fibromyalgia. You just don't hear about them. Likewise, the doctors and medical researchers don't hear about them, because I don't go back to the hospital every week and go, hey, I'm well now. But I did used to turn up at the pain clinic every week and go, I'm ill, I'm in pain. So actually one of the research baselines that would be very useful would be collecting data from doctors, for example, patients who have suddenly disappeared from treatment. It doesn't mean they've died or they're chronically ill. Perhaps it's a signifier that they've actually recovered. So, still focusing on the physical body and muscles, there is a wealth of experience of the healing role of kinesiologists in the treatment of fibromyalgia. We know that people with fibromyalgia have experienced traumas, physical, emotional, psychological and spiritual. In fact, it's all connected as one, and we hold traumas as remembered in our bodies. And in order to heal, we need to be able to release them. This is where kinesiology can be particularly useful. Kinesiology is also a useful way to identify food sensitivities and food allergies, which may be exacerbating the IBS that's often suffered by people with fibromyalgia. Now, I had a wheat sensitivity for many years, and it was really, if I ate wheat, I would fall asleep or I would vomit, I would be sick, my stomach would blow up. I mean, I wasn't just like, ooh, slightly sensitive. I thought it was a full-blown allergy, but obviously it's an oversensitivity, but I'm fine now, so I can eat wheat with within reason. I'm very keen on kinesiology for this reason. It's a technique to which I was introduced by a very good friend called Shirley Smythe from Luton. I've lost touch with Shirley. She was an amazing reflexologist and healer and an amazing friend, and she encouraged me to join her training on a Touch for Health programme over 20 years ago, probably about 30 years ago, also known as applied or systematic kinesiology. Kinesiology is a physical therapy system which incorporates muscle testing, neurolymphatic massage, acupressure holding points, and nutrition in order to strengthen imbalances in neurological function of major muscle groups and associated organs. It's probably more, we are now much more aware of nutrition and how vitamins and minerals and nutrition play an important role in our nervous system and our muscles. These muscle testing techniques of kinesiology, they don't test the muscle strength, but rather the neurological and motor functions of limb muscles. This testing technique has been used by physiotherapists and doctors and chiropractors since the 1930s. It was pioneered by physical therapist Florence Kendall, who published Muscles, Testing and Function with Posture and Pain in 1949. The techniques were developed, and in the 1960s, Dr. George Goodhart Jr. formed the International College of Applied Kinesiology. He led a research team who incorporated work on the lymphatic systems and the meridian system. So we're looking at Western medical knowledge and Eastern medical knowledge. One of these original research doctors was the chiropractor John F. Thie. In 1973, he wrote the classic workbook manual for the Touch for Health system, incorporating both muscle testing to ascertain underlying causes and imbalances, and techniques to correct them. And here I'd like to quote from John's book. He wrote, "We cannot believe that we were meant to have to learn with..." Sorry, I'll start again. That was bad. I'm going to quote from his book. "We cannot believe that we were meant to have to learn to live with pain. Just prior to the pain and malfunction, there are signs and symptoms which need to be recognised. One of these is a weakening of the muscles and a change in our posture. We must learn to listen and feel what is going on in our bodies and be able to correct the minor problems before they develop into serious illnesses." In other words, prevention is better than cure. Now, of course, fibromyalgia is not a minor problem. It's a systemic, chronic one, and it develops over a period of years. That does not mean that it is not. That doesn't mean it is irreversible. It is all correctable and reversible. So, like I've said before, I like to look upon, and I think it was really important in my recovery process myself, to look upon fibromyalgia not so much as an illness, but as a healing process in itself. And an exceptionally useful type of soft tissue surface healing for fibromyalgia is myofascial technique massage. If you can find a sensitive practitioner of myofascial massage, it can release not just the tensions in your body, but also deep-rooted historic traumas and help with a deep healing sleep that is necessary for you to recover. And again, if you need to be recommended to some myofascial massage healers, get in touch. We can help you out there. So remember those 3 keys to recovery that we've already mentioned that form 3 of the healing principles that I used as a framework for my own recovery. Healing of past traumas. So I will talk more about techniques that I used to heal those traumas. We're often offered CBT therapies. I was very lucky because I found a practitioner who knew EMDR, and also I used EFT, and I produced a methodological framework very similar to EFT, but for fibromyalgia, for freedom from fibromyalgia technique. But if you wanted to Google EMDR and EFT, EMDR is the nice board in the UK do authorise the use of EMDR, but very few NHS pathways actually have the funding or the practitioners available for it. But it's a great way of healing past traumas. So the 3 keys, that's the first one. Second one was that healing of the sleep disturbance and insomnia. So we will deal with that as well. And the oneness of body and mind and our causal relationships with our manifest environment and how our environment around us can be quite toxic, and can be making us ill. So to be aware of that. If you need us to signpost you to any particular therapists, and you'd like help, do get in touch by the emails below, or the Twitter link below is probably the quickest way that you'll get a response, and we will try and pass you on to some really good therapists. For some people with fibromyalgia, even the gentlest touch is too painful, so we need to consider self-help therapists. Many people wrote to me, and actually self-help therapists, another note here, self-help therapists is better because massage is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful when you find a practitioner and someone to give you some, that respite. But it's a very passive way of recovering, because you're letting someone do something to you. Now, if you learn a technique like FFT, for example, it's something you can teach yourself. It's something you can use on yourself. So I will be making an audio all about that. It's really important that we take proactive steps in our own recovery and we're not passive. And so there are things that we can do. There are things that we can do to manage our own pain, to help us in our own recovery, that don't involve people doing things to us, but involve us doing things for ourselves. And I hear it's really difficult when you're in pain and you're disabled, you have mobility problems, you have chronic fatigue. It is really, really difficult. I know that, I do understand. Many people wrote to me about how things like yoga, Pilates and Tai Chi helped them. I remember going to a Tai Chi class in Burnham-on-Sea in Somerset, and it was full of pensioners, and I felt really, I was in my 30s, and sitting on a chair because I was the one in the class that couldn't stand up for an hour, and I felt like a right sausage, but it really helped. Tai Chi is a wonderful thing. I still do it now. So people wrote to me about how they used yoga, Pilates and Tai Chi, both in their symptom management and in their total recovery processes. So I love the Chinese healing arts. I also went to an acupuncturist, and one of the things that I've been able to do since I recovered, so I focused on my recovery. I focused on giving myself a reward, if you like. And one of the things that I really wanted to be able to do was travel through China and travel through the nomadic areas of Tibet, in the high altitudes of the Himalayas, which is something I achieved after my recovery, and I could never have done that. I wouldn't have even dreamed of doing it. I could never have experienced that while I had fibromyalgia. So it was one of my imaginings, one of my visions that I held in my head, that I was going to reward myself when I recovered. And that's another really useful thing. I know when you're in pain and chronic fatigue, you just feel like it's never going to end, right? You feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel. You feel like you don't have a life. You're never going to have a life. You can't do, I felt so depressed and suicidal, thinking my life was so worthless, that I didn't have a life. That I was suicidal with that depression, and then doctors say, oh, you're just depressed. No, you're not. You're depressed because you're in pain, and you're not enjoying your life. So do believe that you can recover. It really is possible. This condition of fibromyalgia is not for life. It can be reversible. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and if you can hold in your head something that you're going to achieve and you can do, when you recover. So for me, there was, with fibromyalgia, you get the fibro fog, and you really can't concentrate on anything for very long. And since recovery, I managed to achieve a distinction in a master's degree involving research, and I could never have done that when I had fibromyalgia. I couldn't even think, gosh, fibro fog. I couldn't think of anything. And I certainly couldn't have travelled. So please hold something in your mind that you really know that you will be able to achieve when you recover, and believe that that recovery is possible. I'd like to pick up on something else here, which is also about one's mind and attitude of mind. And it made me very sad. There was a woman with fibromyalgia in Somerset, and she was recommended Tai Chi, not by me, but by the support group. And she said, "Oh, being a Christian, I don't believe in things which come from the occult, so I can't do that." Now, I felt particularly sad at her comment, because there was no point trying to argue with her that Tai Chi has got nothing to do with the occult, because I could see her suffering. Now, I know that not all Christians feel that way about the healing arts, and it was such a shame, because basically her fear and the dogma, there was a fear and a dogma in there that actually prevented her using something that life was giving her a tool to support her and recover, and her and her fear had stood in the way. So again, like in the audio before this, when I ask you rather a difficult question, is there something that you are afraid of recovery? Is there a fear that is stopping you from recovering? At least with this woman, there was definitely a fear that was stopping her engaging with something that would have made her feel better. So this is a really important point. Take a moment to reflect, be aware, again, no judgment, no shame, don't berate yourself, or don't feel, that you have to have a fear. Maybe there is nothing holding you back, but maybe there is something, maybe you have a fear of recovering. And if the thought of investigating that notion makes you feel angry, that is a signifier that there is a fear. So it's something to reflect on. And on this point, we can move on to a very useful technique called mindfulness or mindfulness meditation. It might be useful to consider in this moment if you can recognize anything else that might be preventing you from finding a path to absolute recovery. I had very specific fears of recovery. Mine were financial, the fear of absolute poverty, because although I was fortunate in the UK as a single parent, I had been fortunate enough to receive disability living allowance. I mean, it wasn't easy. I had to fight for it, and we've spoken about that sort of fighting before. I had child tax credits, which I really didn't appreciate, and help from social services. I had direct payments, and as I opened up to accept support, we got support from social services and support from young carers. Took a long time, because I had a young child who, in effect, due to a lack of family support from anywhere else, had become my carer. So recovery was actually terrifying, because it meant that if I recovered, I would lose the only income that at the time was feeding and clothing and putting a roof over the head of my child. Now, I did overcome this fear, and I did manage to recover fully, but it could take a lot of courage and faith to take one step towards recovery. So the fact that you're here today taking that first step shows what an amount of determination and courage you really have. And here again, my Buddhist faith really helped me, and I just wanted to quote something from the writings of Buddhist monk Nichiren Daishonin. The Buddha wrote that one should become the master of one's mind rather than let one's mind master oneself. The Buddha wrote that one should become the master of one's mind rather than let one's mind master oneself. So I'll let you ponder on that for a moment. Mindfulness or mindfulness meditation is not navel gazing, it's observation. It's quite simply being mindful of the moment and refocusing and reattuning our perception of the moment. Now, chronic pain is something that really can take over our every living thought. It's not something we really want to focus on for too long. If, for example, I was in too much pain to walk and I had to sit down in public to rest, I would use mindfulness to retune my brain away from berating myself for being exhausted, and recognising small pleasures in the moment. I used to think, oh, it's so awful, I have to sit down. I felt really bad about myself. It was, actually, no, stop. Stop being hard on oneself. Just sit down, reattune, and recognize and observe the moment. So observe one's pain, but don't get consumed by it, is what I'm trying to say. So, for example, mindfulness allows you to realize that the feelings are just mental dialogue and that you have the freedom to experience each moment without any judgment of yourself or others. If I am in too much pain and I need to sit down, that's just a statement. It should have no more power than that. And then when I sit down, I can refocus the moment. There should be no judgments or feelings of being unsupported can be really turned into simple truths. For example, I have come out today and walked from my car. I am standing outside breathing fresh air. I am being supported by this bench. I am watching other people hurrying by. I am savouring this life moment. And breathe. So instead of saying I can't get out without my car, or I had to have a blue badge, disabled badge because I couldn't walk very far, just a simple observation. I have come out today and I have walked away from my car. Or instead of feeling like I should run a marathon or go out for a cycle ride or be as fit as I once was, a simple observation. I am standing outside, breathing air. Or instead of thinking, oh, I have to sit down on this bench, I can't make it to the chemist for my medication, or I can't make it to the school gates to pick up my son, and I'm so useless. Instead of thinking those things, sit down and think, observe, I am being supported in this moment by this bench. And instead of comparing myself to all these other people who were rushing around and I would feel so useless, instead of thinking those type of thoughts, reframe them as a simple observation. I am watching other people hurrying by. No judgment, just observation. No judgment of oneself, just observation. Savouring the life moment. In the 2003 research paper, Alterations in Brain and Immune Function, produced by Mindfulness Meditation by J. Davidson and John Kabat-Zinn, and everyone else who was involved in that research, I don't have their names in front of me, so it's Davidson, Kabat-Zinn et al. They reported finding that mindfulness demonstrates in the brain, and I will quote, a short program in mindfulness meditation may change brain and immune functions in a positive way. A short program in mindfulness meditation may change brain and immune function in a positive way. Obviously, the whole medical paper, Alterations in Brain and Immune Functions, produced by Mindfulness Meditation, explains in much more detail that medical research. But what I'm trying to get across is in no way is fibromyalgia a psychosomatic illness, but a short program in rewiring what we are thinking with our brain can change our brain, and it can change immune functions in positive ways. So the neuroplasticity of your brain, its ability to rewire itself, doesn't mean that it's a psychological illness. Far from it. But we know that it is a neurological condition, and as with other techniques like Dan Neufer's ANS Rewired, and I think I've mentioned Dan before, you can find him at www.cffs S, unraveled. And because he had chronic fatigue, and then he came to his own recovery and now shares how he recovered using a technique that he calls ANS Rewired. The technique that I used to recover from fibromyalgia, you can find in my books, and we build up to that in volume 5, that framework. But Dan is working on the autonomous nervous system here and rewiring neurological pathways because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, and the healing can also be neurological. I think the healing needs to be holistic, that we have to take an approach to all of the 7 healing principles and those keys to recovery. But obviously one of those paths to healing is neurological. And if you want to find out more about the science behind these techniques, and also behind the techniques EMDR and EFT, or the FFT program that I devised for fibromyalgia freedom techniques, you can find much more written about those in volumes 4 and volumes 5 of these books, and there's information all over the web as well. This audio specifically is about chapter 11, treatments and therapies, and I'm going to produce a separate audio for to look at EMDR and EFT, because I'm going to do a separate audio where I can talk you through a version of EFT and a version of the EMDR that you can learn for yourself. It's a self-help healing technique, and you can use that as a technique for fibromyalgia freedom technique. So we'll devote a whole audio just to that in the future, so look out for that one. And if you want some more information about this, just follow the links below, or if you want us to recommend you EFT or EMDR or biofeedback practitioners, also contact us and just let us know. So just before the end of this audio, I want to remind you to look out for 3 other audio support materials for volume 4. So this has been about the volume 4 of the Fibromyalgia Road to Recovery books. It has volume 4 in itself has 4 chapters. We've just covered 1. The other 3 chapters that we'll cover in separate audios are vitamins, minerals and nutrition, detoxing and diet, and the importance of different types of exercise, and we'll start to go into more detail about those different frameworks towards your recovery. So do look out for the audio for the guided fibromyalgia freedom technique that we'll be making in the future. Once again, thank you so much for finding me today, and if you need signposting to any therapies or treatments, just let us know. I will see you again soon. Bye for now.